Hey, what's up, everyone? I thought I would just do a little walkthrough of all my games that, as of today, which is November 14th, it's Tuesday. So, I figured it's been a long time since I've done one of these, but just to kind of keep things updated with what I've got in the apartment and where everything is right now. So, actually, I'll just start over here. So, I live in a one-bedroom apartment at the moment. And so naturally, I make big messes in tiny spaces. And this is supposed to be my kitchen table. It's kind of just become my workbench. I kind of like leaving all of my tools and basically everything that I use regularly in one spot. So it's kind of nice, when I'm done with something, I can just leave it here and just grab it. I don't have to worry about packing everything away, then pulling it out. So anyhow, let's get started. So starting here is my Arkanoid Revenge of Doe. I did a whole restore series on this, but this is all laminate, and this is a Pac-Man cabinet. I did pretty much, you could call it a restoration, I guess, but since this was a kit game, it never had a dedicated cabinet. So I tried to make one as best as I could, but originally this was a Pac-Man cabinet that had been converted to something else. But yeah, Arkanoid Revenge of Doe. And next is my Miss Pac-Man. This was a full restoration I did back, I think, like 2008. I made a few mistakes, but I'm pretty proud of this one still. I used the vinyl artwork. And then this one has Mark Spaeth's 4-in-1 kit. What that means is that you can play either regular Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man on this one, and fast or slow version. So that's Miss Pac-Man. Not much to say about that. Here we've got Marble Madness, one of my favorite games. I did a big restoration on this one. It was, when I picked it up, it had Road Blasters in it. And then I just kind of deconverted it or converted it back to Marble Madness, which is my favorite System 1 game. Over here's Eyes. I did a full restore in this one. There's clear or gloss laminate on the side. Did a lot to this one. I don't think I video recorded this one, but there's a lot of pictures, and I documented pretty much everything. But Rockola's Eyes, one of my favorites of all time. And then recently I finished this Cheyenne, did a full restoration on this one. It's got the Woodstock original gun, thanks to my girlfriend. And did the artwork, did the vinyl, pretty much did this game inside and out, tube swapped it with a burn-free tube. And yeah, one of my favorites in my collection for sure. It's a lot of fun. And then real recently, this is my latest restoration, was Super Hang-On. And I kind of call it a partial restoration because I didn't really do a whole lot with the base. I just kind of cleaned it up, but I did repaint the cowl. This is like a fiberglass. And that took a lot more work than I anticipated. And then I also replaced a lot of the decals that were torn and beat up. I did try to preserve a bunch. For instance, like this guy here, this is original. A few of these decals are also still originals. And also added yellow LEDs to the gauges here, to the meters. Added a little light for the turbo button, replaced the grips. But overall, it was a pretty straightforward restore, and hell of a lot of fun. This game is a blast. It's got a little rumble motor in here, and I'll do a gameplay video. Actually, I'll do a few gameplay videos. Definitely one of Cheyenne, one of Super Hang-On, maybe a couple of the other games. But it's got this rumble motor in here, and so it's constantly vibrating. It's supposed to simulate the throttle. Like if you're riding a motorcycle, there'd be a constant vibration. That's what this is simulating. It's not a shaker motor like Outrun, where if you crash, it vibrates. It's always vibrating, and it increases as you increase the throttle, and then and even more when you hit the turbo button. So pretty cool. Let's see. So that's my row as of right now. These 6 games, and then this is my project right now. This is a Robotron cabinet. And when I got this, it had been converted to silkworm. It had black laminate on the sides. It had been completely de-Robotronized, if that's even a word. But it had been completely converted away from Robotron. So there was no remains of Robotron. So for me, that was a perfect candidate to do my Toki restoration, because I remember playing Toki in the arcades, and 9 times out of 10 it was always in a Williams cabinet, like Robotron, Defender, and Joust, any of those Williams cabinets. And so I wanted to get a Williams cabinet to throw this kit in. And by the way, Toki came only in a kit, just like Arkanoid, only came as part of a kit. So it was meant to be thrown in another cabinet. And so since it doesn't have a dedicated cabinet, that's the route I'm going. So I'm currently in the process of making this a Toki, and I've already slapped on, I got this awesome 3M vinyl, and I know it's really tough to see this, but it's actually like a brushed, it's like a brushed aluminum, and this is part of their 1080p series. Anyways, it's a really high quality vinyl. It's super thin. It's only like 3.5 mil, but it's got, I think they call it like air aggress, is the style of the vinyl. Basically, it's got really microscopic, tiny little holes in the vinyl so that it prevents air bubbles. And so this stuff went on without a hitch. I did have to prep the cabinet, and I'll talk about this more once it's done. But anyways, the vinyl went on real nice, and I've slapped on my new old stock side art. My buddy Mock, Steve, is working on making me a custom bezel, because the kit didn't originally come with a dedicated bezel. And I've got the control panel already down here. This is some new old stock control panel overlay that I picked up. It is a little bit yellow. This is supposed to be white. It's a little bit yellow, so I may not use this. And there's a chance that Steve may also be designing a control panel overlay for this, since this is just kind of a generic overlay that came with the kit. But yeah, so Toki's in the works. And then over here's my red tint. I documented this. This is on my YouTube channel as well. I've got a whole video series on this restoration, but this is all powder coated. I did a top to bottom restore on this guy. So on this side, we've got Dr. Mario, and on this side, Super Mario Brothers. I have a few more games, but these are the two that typically I play the most. So I usually just leave them in here. So that's my red tint. And then lastly is my Mega Touch. This is well, actually, let me turn that light back on. This is a Mega Touch Ion being the hardware platform. So there were a lot, and I'll be talking about this more. I want to do some more gameplay Mega Touch videos. But unlike the Mega Touch I had before this, the Force, which I did a whole series of videos on, this is a flat, an LCD, obviously, flat panel. Everything's built right into here. So, and I'll show this in a different video. But long story short, this is my updated Mega Touch. I have since got rid of my other one, which I liked thoroughly. If I didn't have this, I'd still be hanging on to that one. But I sold that to a buddy of mine who is now taking care of it. That's a whole nother story. But this has got the 2014 software on there versus the 2011. It's got a different hardware platform. And this is the last version of software. This is basically the last software that Mega Touch put out. And there's a ton of more games. You can see there's a little built-in joystick down here for some of the other games. So yeah, but basically it's another Mega Touch. So that's it. That's what I've got in the apartment right now. I plan on finishing Toki, and then I've been playing with the idea of getting a collapsible table, getting rid of this kitchen table, and getting like a collapsible, like a card table or something like that I can pull out when I need to use it. And that way I can get rid of this and probably squeeze another 2 or 3 games in here. And I do have plans for what those are going to be. And then I would also like to get my Medalist dartboard. It's a coin out, like a barred dartboard with a monitor and stuff. A buddy of mine is actually storing that right now. But I would like to get that back and throw it over here between these lamps. I measured enough space that you can comfortably throw darts and still be, I think it's 9 feet or something like that. But it would work out really well right there. So I want to bring that in here. I want to move the red tent here, kind of where Toki is actually right now, so that you would still have enough space, but you could comfortably play it, because at some point, I want to dabble a little bit into pinball, and I want to get a Lord of the Rings pinball and throw that right here. That won't be for a very long time. Those are a lot of money, and I just don't have it right now. But that's kind of my vision for kind of maxing out my apartment. But anyways, as of today, this is how my apartment stands. These are the games I've got. And now we'll go to my storage unit, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so we're at my storage unit, and the history with this, let me open it up here, is actually, I got this back in 2011 when I moved out of my buddy's house. So I had a ton of games in his basement, and I was laid off from my job. I had to move out, and I had no space for my games. So I picked up this 10x10 storage unit, and I've had it ever since. And now that I'm in an apartment by myself, I've been slowly pulling some projects out of here, but for the most part, I intend to keep the storage unit for a while until I have a big house or something like that. But anyways, so kind of going through here, this is just an extra cabinet or shell for my, when I did the CompuVend novelty machine restorations, and there's a bunch of parts in that bag. This stuff's just extra general storage stuff. But here's my Tetris in the Dynamo cabinet. This is my Final Fight. It's actually in a Sega Gremlin cabinet, much like Frogger. And I've actually decided to repurpose this cabinet, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I already pulled the monitor. That's being used in my Toki restoration. I pulled and sold the board. So it's basically just an empty cabinet that's wired for JAMA right now. Back here is my green Frogger. And I do plan to maybe touch that up a little bit, but I'll probably end up selling that. I just don't have much interest in Frogger. My DK Junior. This is my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was actually a conversion. This was my first game, but I converted a 4-player Desert Assault to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Very similar cabinet as the Konami ones. So that's that guy. Back in this little corner, you can't really see very well, but that's my Centipede Cabaret that I painted white, and basically, you know, to mimic the full upright. I thought it looked pretty cool. This is both these right here are projects. This is going to be a Warp. This was originally a Warp that was converted to a Mr. Do, so I want to get it back to a Rockola Warp. That'll be a big project. And then Simpsons, of course. And this game works. It fully works, but it does need a big restoration. Needs a lot of work. So, and then let's see, down here, this is an extra tube for a K7000. There's no chassis on there, just the tube. That's an 8-liners monitor. 8-liners, I don't know if they're still around, but they used to sell arcade monitors, and basically they would throw a universal chassis onto a tube, and they're okay. They're not the greatest. They're kind of, I mean, this one's kind of a piece of crap, but it works, and it's nice to have a spare. That's just a tube swap candidate, so I intend to pull that tube and use that to replace a burned tube. And then back here is just a bunch of arcade parts. Let's see here. Down here I've got some joystick parts, some wiring. I've got a few chassis in here. More joystick parts, it looks like. Oh, that's Mega Touch software. Yeah, more joysticks. We've got, what have we got here? This looks like, oh, this is an old board for more Mega Touch stuff. Old motherboard. This looks like a Midway coin door. Yeah. Okay. I apologize if the camera works real shaky. I'm using my phone, which I normally don't do, but I don't have access to my other camera right now. That's a Geo7 flyback. What's in here? I'll try to pull all this stuff out of the corner. And we've got a bunch of T-molding. Yeah, okay, so yeah, leftover T-molding. Looks like some CoinMex, Nintendo CoinMex. Okay. I won't go through the rest of that stuff. Is basically in the box, I believe, is a vertical frame for a monitor, and sitting on top there, which you can't really see, it's too dark, is an A board for Capcom's CPS2 system. A buddy of mine gave that to me. He claimed it didn't work, so that was a project for a rainy day that I just haven't gotten to. So, but yeah, anyways, looks like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cabinets or so, not including Final Fight, because that's no longer a Final Fight. And then looks like space. I could probably fit, I don't know, what do you think? 2, maybe 3 cabinets in here, if they're smaller, you know, like classics. But there it is. All right.